Hello everyone, welcome to Wealthy Mindset. My name is Oliver. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Hope you guys are having a great day wherever you're at. And today I'm going to be covering BlackBerry, GameStop, and the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones specifically to cover the overall market. And I think you guys are going to actually enjoy this video a lot because in terms of BlackBerry, long-term, short-term, it's really interesting. In terms of GameStop, you're going to see where there's going to be support, and I think it's pretty good. And in terms of the Dow Jones, you're going to see the overall play, and there's going to be an interesting show in a couple seconds. So I'm going to cover that right now. So quick disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a professional. So please do your own due diligence and your own research before you buy or sell. Don't buy or sell based off of what I show you or off the opinion I form, right? Form your own opinion, find your own research, etc., so on and so forth. Basically, I don't want to get sued, right? I do own shares in BlackBerry, been holding for 6 years. So I'm a long-term investor. And we're going to start off with the Dow Jones. So first thing I'm going to show you guys is this one thing. So if you guys, by the way, if you want to see an in-depth dive of the Dow Jones, I'm hopefully going to be posting a video in roughly about 2 days showing the whole entire like short-term / long-term trajectory. And if you're interested in that, consider subscribing. So we closed off today pretty good, not too bad. So here's the dot-com bubble, right? And there's a resistance or upward trend line resistance level that basically hit at the top of the dot-com bubble, and then right here is just before the pandemic, and then we recently passed it. But then you could say, well, we just passed it both times, dot-com bubble and before the pandemic. Well, if I zoom in really close, we basically pass it ever so slightly right there, if I could just show it better. But hopefully you guys can see it. It barely passes. But then for the pandemic, just before, if you actually zoom in, it doesn't pass it, right? Like it might have passed it by a hair, but it's not a big deal. But those are essentially false breakouts, right? But what happened here is we recently did, once we came back from recovery, we did pass it. We have a support line that formed. The only thing is though, we potentially have a false breakout. And if we have a false breakout, that's awesome. That's perfect, right? But if it's not a false breakout, we might be in bad shape. But we have technically two support lines. We have the upward trend line support line, and we have another support line that was basically the one that dated back from the dot-com bubble, right? Or it's a resistance level, but it could potentially act as support. You can see right here, back tested, acted as support, right? So there's that. So now I'm going to go in closer. That upward trend line, we were up for the day, which was pretty good, but we did not move past the long-term moving average. So what's going to happen potentially, I think, for tomorrow, I think we're going to do the exact same thing that we did here and potentially hypothetically continue on this downward trend line, even though we did pass it. So that is a good sign for the most part. So essentially, there's two things that could happen for tomorrow, right? The MACD line is about to go into the negative. So I think what could happen is a few things. If you're really optimistic, you're essentially thinking it's going to basically just start bouncing in here and then come back up, right? And go off. And if that's the case, you're basically thinking it's going to go down to roughly about 30,600 and then just go up to roughly close of the day, I think, because there's a resistance level right here at 30,898, right? Again, nobody knows 100%. They'd be rich if they knew, but there's that. But I think what most likely is going to happen is I think this resistance line is going to be ignored, or this downward trend line is going to be ignored, and I think it's going to break through and bounce off this moving average. So essentially come down and then probably meet up at this point and then probably bounce up, right? And if that's the case, I think most likely it's going to do that at roughly 30,000. I think it was going to be a little bit higher. So about 30,508. It might be off by $1 or $2 or a few dollars. Again, these trend lines, they could be a false breakout, false dips, all that stuff. So around the ballpark of 30,500. And then it's going to bounce back up. What are we going to close out? Close at around roughly about there still, I think, for the most part. So again, come down, bounce off the support line, and bounce back up. Ultimately, that's what I think. And this basically MACD line is pretty much showing it too. So now we're going to move into BlackBerry. So for BlackBerry, in terms of long-term, short-term investors, it's reassuring, and it's not like, hopefully, I don't know, hopefully you guys like this. So we got, let me see, is it the all line 1 year? Okay, perfect. So we have, in terms of long-term investors, you guys are going to be happy about this. We have a support line coming from here, back tested, which was good. And then ultimately the trajectory is going to be up in the upside. So that is good. In terms of long-term, you're happy about that because we potentially could still back test it. We're right here, roughly about here. The reason why I have this downward trend line drawn is, let me see if I can zoom in. So it's right about there, right? what ultimately is going to potentially happen is I don't think it essentially is going to drop down exactly. I think it's going to like drop down, consolidate on the side a little bit and drop down. But I think ultimately what's going to happen is we're looking at coming down at the $8, which sucks. Trust me, I'm a long-term investor. I know how this is probably going to suck big time. But ultimately we're probably going to drop down to, where is it? Right about there. So we got support right there. Yeah, like, let me see. Worst case scenario, I think, in my opinion, we're looking at, this is worst case, $8.19, right? Maybe, wait, what about this? $8.12. That's the utmost lowest. But I think the combination of it going sideways, consolidating, the moving average, all stuff, by the time it meets, we're looking at the high mid $8, so like $8.60, 61 cents. I think that's pretty fair. So $8.61 for the most part, we're going to end up dropping down to, which I know, trust me, long-term wise, you guys are like, man, we just made it up to the $28, $29. Can we not go back? Now, I'm not saying that's not possible, and I'm going to show why. There's a chance it could come back. But keep in mind, MACD line is going to cross over to negative. We need to technically bounce back soon if that's the case. But we'll see. Anything's possible. But if we go in closer, so what is happening, if I could do it better, is it the 1 month? Yeah. Okay, so essentially we have a downward trend line happening, and we're just basically going to keep going down, I think, unless we pass this downward trend line, right? And there is a chance, MACD, when you get closer, it does cross over for, like, hypothetically the next month. Or did I do, yeah, I think I did a month. And then, but for tomorrow, I think ultimately what's going to happen is we're going to drop down to, where was it? Okay, so if we drop down somewhere between the ballpark, I think we might essentially end up closing the day at $10.30. I think that's what's going to happen. If you're thinking, yeah, because okay, so there's a support level at $10.30. I think ultimately it's just going to keep dragging down unless we break this resistance line, downward trend resistance line. If we do, we're in good shape, but it's unlikely. The only thing we got going is the MACD line. Now keep in mind the volumes are usually low in the after hours too. Like, this is insane. I don't know what's going on here, because this is not massive volumes for after hours, for it to be dragging it down after hours. But at the same time, you know what? It's not a big deal because it's only down by a little bit. So we could technically reverse. There is support at this level. Nonetheless, that's why we're hovering around it. It's not the greatest support right here. It curves a little bit. I'm sure it dropped down a little bit from there, but nonetheless, it's still support. But I think if I had to guess, $10.30, $10.35 tomorrow. If you're looking at the upside, you're looking at, let me see, where was it? Yeah. Okay, so pretty much consolidate around this area still. And for the most part, the high of the day tomorrow, I would say, is $12.37. If you want to be over, like, excited for tomorrow kind of thing, then you're looking at $12.68, potentially $12.82. I would say that's the ultimate high, like $12.77, $12.80. But that's pretty much it for tomorrow. Let me see if there's any upward trend line. Yeah, there's like a slight slant for the upward trend line if you're looking at it, but it's not that great. I don't know. It's not going to necessarily start going down right off the bat. I'm pretty sure it's going to be doing the same thing, consolidate first before it goes down. But yeah, so there's that spiel. But overall, long-term wise, I think it's pretty good. I'm pretty excited for overall BlackBerry. Okay, so for GameStop, it's pretty interesting. I think like the overall play of GameStop, the way it's working out, I think it's awesome. What's the community doing? Hopefully they succeed. Again, I don't own positions in GameStop, but I think it's pretty chill. So what happens is we have a couple support lines happening. So we have this potential support line at the bottom side. It's pretty interesting because it acts as support, resistance, well, technically resistance, and then potentially support, except this line should have been drawn better. I think it's that. Yeah, that's how it is. Okay, so, and then support, right? So essentially, if you're not optimistic in GameStop and you're thinking, okay, obviously it could keep going lower, but we have a good amount of support. So the lowest I think it would happen would be at $20, $19.15. It would take a while and consolidate around there, but maybe even more. But don't worry about that right now. I'll try to keep you guys posted if anything dramatic happens in the post down below, / I'll pin it in terms of this video. But I think essentially this counts as good support. So tomorrow, for the most part, the lowest, if it were to drop dramatically, the lowest for tomorrow would be around the $66.43. Maybe actually, you know what? Because it might have a false breakout. So I'd say $65.32, right? The MACD line is still in the negative, which is not that great, but it looks like it's going to cross over to a positive. So you might have a bounce up, which is pretty good. And that might be tomorrow. So I'm going to elaborate more on that. But I'm just trying to show the negatives, and then I'm going to show the positive side also at the same time. So what happens is we have a downward trend line, resistance, we have support, which is good. We have this support, which I'll read off the potential low. It'll be at the $42 mark roughly. Obviously, as you go up, the higher it goes. So the price could be higher, and like right here it'd be like $50, just in case if you don't know. But the problem is we're under the moving averages. The MACD line is technically going to try to cross over to a positive, so that's good, but still in the negative. So for tomorrow, potentially what could happen is it could consolidate or reverse, or ultimately what I think it is, okay, so here's February 2nd, right? It's not going to necessarily just shoot down. That's why I'm pretty hopeful for this upward trend line. I think what's going to do is pretty much going to go down, consolidate, go up, go down, bounce off this downward resistance line. And by February 8th, right? Is that what it is? Yeah, February 8th, that's when basically something's going to happen. Either it's going to break down to the down, or if that makes sense. It's going to break down to the bottom, or break to the top, like break out to the top, right? It doesn't necessarily have to do it on February 8th, by the way. It could do it beforehand if it just starts like forming down or something. And this is a pretty steep drop, so anything could happen. But if it were to meet, sometimes triangles meet for some reason, and if they do, they just either decide to go up or down. But if that's the case, let me try to figure out if there's any kind of something. So yeah, we have a slight upward trend line, just like BlackBerry, which is kind of crazy. But you could potentially open to be good for tomorrow. So two scenarios: you go down. If you go down, those are the support levels that I mentioned. Actually, you know what? I'm going to mention also a couple more support levels in terms of actual support levels. So you got a support level at $71.99. That's pretty good. You got another support level at, actually, yeah. So let's go with this first. So 83, because I'm going to try to break it down as much as possible. So you got support level at $83, support level at the $75 from what I saw, support level at the $71.53, that one's pretty good, support level at 67, and then I'm going to just read this last one, $60 support level, $60.81. So those are pretty good. Now in terms of the resistance on top, this is pretty massive resistance at the $143 resistance level. It's pretty big. I don't think it's essentially going to pass that tomorrow. Hopefully it does. If it does, just FYI, like basically you're looking at, for the most part, $160. I'll keep you posted again in the comments down below, and pin the comment down below if anything drastic happens. So if you're optimistic it's going to ride up, essentially this is going to basically go up, consolidate, etc., so on and so forth. But those are, it will ride up on this, and then what essentially you're thinking is the next few days it's going to meet up to this triangle. But I think essentially it's going to, if it goes up tomorrow, which I'm pretty hopeful it is technically for some reason, because MACD is crossing to the positive. It has a chance to pass the moving average, the low moving average, so that's good, but it's going to get shot down by this higher moving average. That's the problem. So I think in the beginning of the day it's going to be up and then get shot down and then potentially cross this and start going down. So that's the whole spiel of the for all the stocks and Dow Jones. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, by the way. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys did like the video, give it a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel immensely in terms of the YouTube algorithm. And thank you guys, by the way, for subscribing. Really appreciate it. We got past 500 subscribers, and the channel is only roughly, or in terms of the first video post, was roughly about a week and 2 days ago. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And then comment down below if you have any questions. I'll try to answer them as quick as possible, as soon as possible. And again, if you're interested in terms of stocks, financial freedom, in terms of like, I'm going to be talking about like mortgages too, what's the best options, what you should do, this and that. Not advice, but just like my opinion. I've gone through them, so trying to help. But yeah, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, consider subscribing. And thanks again for the awesome support. See you guys in the next video. Peace.